Hey folks, we're going to work on some more martial powers today. We've been building a new spell mana system for martial characters that provides the same amount of options and flexibility from level to level, day to day, to be able to optimize your action loop sequences and how you can aid your team by selecting the powers that your character knows and then having a mana resource pool to spend points on per use that recovers either on a long rest or a short rest, depending on what kind of character you are. So I'm going to check my signal, go through my quick intro spiel, and then we'll get to work here for a couple hours. I'm playing hooky with the rest of my day, so I'll have an opportunity here just to tear up the terrain with you guys for a few hours for anyone that decides to hang out with me. So checking signal here real quick to make sure I'm coming through okay. Mic check, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Make sure I'm coming. Sounds like I'm solid. I'm going to be posting on the internets, on Discord, Twitter, etc., that I am live and active, and I'm going to walk through my intro with you guys real quick while I do that. So if you're here in the future catching this after live stream, hello future us. If you've heard the intro spiel before, then you'd be welcome to go ahead and skip past it by like a minute or whatever, and then we'll be getting into the meat of converting Rangers Conclaves into the martial power system today. But for those that are here with me live and direct right now, hey live us, and for those in the future that are catching this for the first time, let me just say, hey, my name's Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and then I publish them online. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for the past 5 years. There is a slew of links in the description down below that will take you to various things that I've done that you can see here on the screen. If you click through that stuff, the stuff that I publish has extensive free previews. So you'll get a really large chunk of ideas that I create just by tooling through the stuff that you can look at for free. If you're on a desktop, if you go into each individual book product page, there'll be the cover illustration, and then underneath that, there's going to be a link that says full preview. If you're on a mobile device, there's going to be an eye icon on the right-hand side of the screen. Whether you click the eye icon or the full preview link, either one of them is going to throw open a PDF for you. You'll have these book covers that you look at. You'll be able to read through the text to see what it is. If you think the stuff is cool, consider making a purchase to help support more shenanigans in the future. If you're here for art normally, this is a development mechanical design stream. We're going to do a lot of text and conceptualization stuff, but in those links down below, there's about 150 different illustrations that I've published for the books that you can thumb through in the free preview just to check out my artwork if you want. If you do a search for my name on the DMsGuild under artists, Phil Kearney, there's about 98, I think, different books that use my stock art currently, so you can kick through those books and see some of my work as well. So thanks a lot to the community for being so supportive of the artwork that I create. It means a ton to me that people like to use my work. So thank you. Let's see, I've just posted that. Here, let me rearrange my screen here real quick so you guys can see the world around us. Here we go. So I just posted that I'm live on Twitter. So if you're using the Twitter X platform, you can follow me at Phil Kearney to get notifications about different articles that I've posted, illustrations that I'm showing of like first looks and sketches of stuff that I'm working on, different article content that I've produced in the past, and you have an opportunity to take a look at things, be first on the horizon. And talking about being first on the horizon, hey Zona, thanks for being here. This is our 97th episode of this. You can like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to help me grow the channel. I'm here 6 days a week creating artwork and doing mechanical design work. What was I looking at? Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so this whole thing is inspired because of the color mana spell point variant rules that I created a few years back. We're going to be updating this with the new rules in 2024, and we'll be adding this martial power system to that array. So we'll have all 13 classes can use the same mana resource language, just like in MTG for Magic the Gathering enthusiasts. This creates a common mana system that all classes can use to expend on short rest or long rest to be able to trigger different effects, spell casting, and different class abilities, and using the language of color magic. So you can check out all these books in the description down below to see how the system works and how how flavorful color as your signature for identifying magical effects in your world, just how amazing that as a reference is. Like how do you describe necromancy spells or abjuration spells or conjuration spells versus divination spells? With the color magic system, with 5 colors, white, blue, black, red, green, whenever you're creating a magical effect, a class feature ability, or creatures, locations, artifacts, magic items, traps, books, all these things that have these different types of magic infused into them can literally be radiating color off of them as like so dangerous or so potent that you can just pick it up with the naked eye. And then if you have like True Sight or like Detect Magic active, then a whole array of different colors can pop up in a room or a location for you to see how different strands of magic are interconnecting with each other and weaving together to be able to create these things, to have like a really visual language for researching magic, interacting with magical creatures and spells, traps, being able to use that language to add a level of depth of exploration and investigating these different strands of magic that can lead you to different traps and different effects that you might not see otherwise, to give your rogue and your wizards or your artificer something to interact with each other, to help each other disarm these things. Lots of really cool stuff. And this martial powers book that we're developing is designed to add that same level of depth to the martial characters. We're looking at barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, rangers, and rogues. There's also caveats that artificers and warlocks can make use of this stuff. Artificers can build artifacts with infusions to be able to pull in some of these powers to create like magic items, armor, or different items that can trigger these different power effects that we have. Warlocks can pick them up as invocations at the same rate of half casting that all these classes operate off of. For you to be able to see what it is that we're doing right now, I'll cap off my intro with this. That if you scroll down here in the description, you're going to see playtest content and early looks on my Patreon. You do not need to be a member of my Patreon, though God bless you if you do. But you can just tool down through the different articles that I've been publishing about different stuff that I think about. And you get down here to the playtest for the martial powers. If you click on the YouTube screen, you're right here right now. Thanks a lot for being here with us, guys. But if you click the martial powers link, it will take you to a Google Doc. For you, it's going to be read only, and it's literally everything that we're going to be looking at today. You'll be able to you'll be a spectator inside the document to see what we're doing. But this is the same document that I use. So as I navigate through the document, as we convert Ranger Conclave and talk about the different mechanics that we've been developing in this book, you can read along with us. Ranger is the last class that we have to complete. The class modifications are all done for all the classes, and we're now just down to the last 3 Ranger Conclaves. Once those are done, all of the classes, the Barbarian, Fighter, Monk, Ranger, Rogue, and Paladin, they'll all be complete. And then that opens the door for us to start developing the playtest content that I want, for us to field test this with people that aren't familiar with it already, maybe. Or maybe some of you guys are, but I'd love to have some folks that want to play along. We're going to do a hex crawl sort of campaign in the Ravnica setting, so that we can make use of the color magic system. We're also, I think I'm going to peel out and do a separate hex crawl using elemental magic, air, earth, fire, water, like airbenders from Avatar: The Last Airbender. We have a system that duplicates that as well. So there's generic key, or like universal magic, which is like, like key uses, or like sorcery points. That doesn't have any specific devotion to anything. But then you have power. Then you have magic paradigms, which is the framework of magic. The default paradigm used in Dungeons and Dragons is the 8 schools of magic, but those are incredibly flavorless. There's no signature visual details or any kind of real definition behind them, other than spells that heal are, like in this edition, they're conjuration, I think. So like it's hard to express like what divination magic looks like, right? By having a color mana system or an elemental system, you start building language around how you can express magical effects as a DM to the players, and then the players get to lean into, like, if you want to play, like if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, like Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, like a Rakdos character using black and red mana, is completely different than, say, a Selesnya character that uses white and green magic. So when we're done with, once we're done with the character mechanics, we'll be dropping into the DM section, and we're going to be cleaning up the language for magic paradigms like elemental, color versus universal, and other power paradigms that we can develop for use in a custom campaign, as well as building power kits to template onto creatures that the DM wants to use. Like if you want to really bump up the effectiveness of creatures to counteract the things that the characters can do, you can clip on basically a power kit, like a striker or a brute or a controller or artillery, just like using the 4th edition model of defining the role of creatures. We can drop templates on to clip on these different powers so that they can have effects that duplicate that role. So if you decide to make like a goblin artillerist, it's going to have a lot of ranged effects and ways to be able to manipulate time, space, and distancing between, versus like say a brute, which is just going to be a big beefy tank with like various damage reductions, means of doing control, knockdown, knockback, lockdown, grapple, restrain, paralyze effects, and then controller is like a cross between those two things, using like mana drain, control effects, paralysis, pushbacks, zones of control, defensive barriers, mana screens that dispel effects when you cross through them, different ideas of control that we can extract from the thousands of Magic the Gathering cards that exist out there. We can craft for DMs custom effects that aren't so much save or die effects, but punishing effects. Like if you want to cast that spell, you're being hit with like say mana tap, and it's going to cost you an extra 2 points of mana to cast that 4 mana spell if you want to make that execute. So there's a lot of fun things you can do using ideas from Magic the Gathering that can then be propagated into the D&D system and reinterpret that language now that we have a mana system. And then that can be, we can peel out all the color language and then rebuild it using elemental magic, or we can just drain all that stuff off altogether and just make it universal magic that doesn't necessarily, but can be identified with the different 8 schools of magic that's generic to Player's Handbook. But honestly, in my opinion, that is the most bland approach to magic that you can have, which is obviously the way that that Wizards of the Coast would do it, because Wizards is looking to appeal to the broadest audience possible. They wouldn't develop a color magic system. That's a high-risk proposal that's required a ton of time to develop, and there's only a segment of their audience that's even interested in magic. But it's such a great framework to begin with that can then be extrapolated out to other systems. So anyway, right now we're working on the Ranger. If you catch the previous streams, we spent last session converting the Hunter into the power system. And, okay, I agree. And so let's see. We're down here on the Hunter. So we still have the Hunter to finish, the Monster Slayer, and the Swarm Keeper. So the fun thing that we were messing around with, so Hunter, for those that knows, the Hunter is an interesting class because it offers an array of options. Every time you gain a level, a new subclass level inside the Hunter, you have these, like in this case, you can pick one of these 3 features, right? And this is the feature that you get to pick, and you don't get to ever pick another one again. So the way that we format things is, like, for example, Gloomstalker, the Gloomstalker Ranger here. Looking at it, see, they get 5 spells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But most subclasses get 10. So, and some Ranger classes don't get any. It's not so much I think they may have attempted to justify this by balancing, but everyone knows just off the cuff that Ranger is one of the most diluted classes with the least impact outside of running around the woods. So them having less spells in other classes isn't doing them any favors. So we're taking advantage of this opportunity. And for any subclass that doesn't have any spells, or a subclass that only gets 5 of them, we are filling out that list so that they get 10 bonus perks, spells or powers, just like every other character does in the game. So we just wanted to put Ranger on even footing. In 2024, we may find that they have a default list of 10, at which point we would then update the document to say you could swap out any of the known spells, bonus spells that you get to have these bonus powers instead. Rangers and paladins can freely mix between spells and powers to be able to build the kind of action loops and help for your team that you want. So these are all just optional buy-ins. And of course, fighters don't have any powers or mana resource normally outside of the Eldritch Knight, but you can use the Eldritch Knight as a rough frame of reference for how this stuff works. Hey, we got some comments here. What's up? So I've been converting your Mirrodin campaign into the 5-colored from Awesome. Trying to emphasize the paradigm with the players. They like it. That is fantastic news. I love hearing that. Thanks, Zona. Really glad that you're enjoying it. It's only going to get better in 2024. We're going to rebrand it to just color mana spell points, and then I'm going to update it with the new abilities that I have to as my own person. I've gotten better at page layouts, so I can have a better looking package. And we also have Strixhaven and Theros now, so we will have information about Strixhaven, Theros, and Ravnica all in the core book, and then if they eventually expand out to Mirrodin or like Zendikar or Innistrad or whatever, then we can just build like a little tear-out book, like maybe like a 5-page guide to lead you through the different options on how to integrate color. But it's such a base, simple system that is really easy to staple onto any kind of campaign. Like Eberron's my favorite campaign setting, and I've been using color magic in Eberron for years. So it's the literal visualizations of it makes it so much more rich for narration. Like if I ever find myself just on the fly doing stuff, I can just roll a color. And it's like, okay, well, let's just build an encounter around that color, and then I'll just start whipping up some just random bullshit. And now the team has to fuck around with this Azorius themed wizard that they're messing around with for the next half hour while I lead them back to the adventure that they wanted to be on. But I digress. I never digress. I rant forever. So the point I was making originally here was that the hunter, right? So the hunter has this array of options, and all the classes get these bonus powers on top of it. When we ran out of time last session, we were in the process of integrating additional powers into the hunter's list, and then again, the hunter gets to choose of the following powers. So what we did was we took what was actually here in the book, and we took all the things that were in here that were something similar. Like if you scroll down to page 58 in the read-along document down below, there's 209 different powers that we have. And so the options that the hunter there's things that are roughly similar to that. So the things that were roughly similar to the options that are here in the list, we built those out into the bonus power list, and then we further modified what the hunters does. But what I realized after stream ended, and I'm really excited about, is that you get all these bonus, you get a list of powers that you learn, just like a wizard or like a ranger normally would. Using this system at first level is when you start gaining mana and you start knowing your powers, and you'll eventually have 16 of them, right? So you get 10 for free. In this case, for the ranger, they get 5 spells that are always on their list. They get 5 powers that are always on their list. They have their full range of spells, the ranger spell list that they can pick from, and they can also pick from this list of 209 powers on top of it. So that's going to give them around 280 different things that they can spend mana on any given day. Just like a wizard, a cleric, a druid, artificer, paladin, they'll be at the same scale. All of them will have that same breadth of options available to them. But what makes the hunter particularly cool, instead of just picking one option and that's the option that you get, you can also choose, instead of picking up these 16 independent powers off of the power list or off your spell list, you can choose to pick the other options that you didn't get for free. So there's a total of 11 powers here, or options, class features that you gain from the hunter. You get 4 of them for free, and then there's 7 more left over that you could choose to learn over the course of your freebie list of 16 choose your whats, right? So you could have 7 off of that, and you'd still have 9 spells left, or 9 slots left over. that you could then learn any spells or any powers that you would gain, again, at the rate of half casting, just like you would as a ranger normally. So Hunter's an incredibly flexible class that lets you do just a fuck ton of shit if you decide you want to invest in all that shit. Also, before I continue on, and I'll catch up on text over there in a second, but there's two types of powers. There's disciplines that require you to spend mana to make use of them, kind of like spell slots. You spend the mana, you do the thing. There's a subset. There's five different disciplines. Exploits, which allow you to modify die rolls and movements and actions that you're taking already. You add mana to augment what it is that you're doing. There's maneuvers, which are standard or bonus actions to trigger, kind of like psionic effects or like spell casting or like spell-like abilities. They're things that you can target things. They're going to make a saving throw normally, or kind of like a battle master, you choose a friend and your friend can spend a reaction and do a thing. That kind of like the battle master can spend superiority dice to trigger allies to do stuff. With this system, you can spend a point of mana to trigger your friends to do stuff, and you get a much larger mana battery than superiority dice that for a fighter in this instance refreshes on a short rest. So it's going to allow you to do more stuff more often and help your friends do whatever it is that you guys decide you want to have your action loops do. Then there are reactions, which are self-explanatory. There's either normal reactions and then there's opportunity attacks. So opportunity attacks are a subset of reactions that are triggered by, like, say, movement or different things that characters can do. So there is a distinguishment between those two things, as in this is a reaction that is combat oriented, or this is a reaction like, I rolled a saving throw, my result sucks, I'm going to throw a point of mana and roll again with advantage, for instance. So those are reactions. And there's strikes, which is there's 24 different strikes that are like modified divine strikes, divine smites rather. Like if you're playing a paladin, if you wanted to use this system, you would replace all your divine smite and the smite spells. These trigger on hit, kind of like Monk's Stunning Strike does. You hit the guy, you're going to do some damage. You can throw mana at it to do more damage, and most of these strikes have kicker effects that'll do more to you, which we've looked at extensively in the past, and I'll no doubt geek out on at some point today as well. And then there's sustained powers, which are concentration effects. If anyone that's familiar with Path of Exile out there, I'm a huge PoE nut. Path of Exile has a hit point pool and it has a mana pool. And Path of Exile has a really cool thing that when you activate an aura, you don't maintain concentration on it. What it does is it reserves a certain amount of your mana pool. It locks your mana so that while you have this aura effect on you that modifies your character or your allies, while that is sustained, it locks your mana down and it's permanent until you turn it off. It reduces the amount of mana that you can use at any given time, but that thing you don't have to worry about maintaining concentration on. So you have the option. You can either leave the mana open so that if you're like a 17th level ranger, you could have 5 levels worth or 5 ranks worth of concentration effects active on you at a time, and still do like 5 ranks worth, like spend 5 mana to smite things. Or if you don't want to worry about losing your concentration, you can lock as many of those aura effects as you want, and it effectively reduces the amount of mana you can use otherwise. So a 17th level ranger, if you had, like, say, Celerity, which is like a non-stun haste effect, it'll cost you 3 mana to lock that. And that would mean that 17th level ranger that would normally be able to use 5 mana at a shot would be willingly reducing themselves to only using 2 mana at a time, because they've locked 3 points of it to permanentize Celerity for themselves until they take a long rest, it's dispelled, or they're knocked unconscious. Otherwise, if you leave it open, it would just use concentration rules where you would maybe lose those points, and then you'd have to use your action economy and spend more resources to reactivate that. So it's up to you how much risk and reward you're willing to take. So that's the mana system. And then there's non-mana options, like being able to learn how to deal a type of damage. You can learn feats instead of powers so that you can leave your ASI open at 4, 8, 12, 16, 19. You can actually increase your stats, and instead you can learn up to 16 feats and not even worry about mana ever. Like, I don't want to use mana. Great. Why don't you just go ahead and learn 16 feats that you like and have, like, and have as much action economy out of your feat system like a fighter as you want. You can also learn types of damage. At first level, you can pick up basic elemental damage. By 5th level, you can pick up more exotic advanced damage types. So if you always want to do force damage, you can. Obviously, that fucks around with resistances and immunities and weaknesses from creatures, which will be a section in the DM part of the book to talk about, hey, your team has access to a lot of different types of damage types. How do you want to have your creatures be able to adapt to that stuff? And now it becomes a cat and mouse game between intelligent creatures that can modify their resistances versus what type of damage the team likes to lean in on. Or if they can discover weaknesses, you can build weaknesses into characters so that they're rewarded for, like, say, knowing psychic damage or knowing thunder damage or being able to trigger an effect that'll deal necrotic damage. Like, this thing is weak to psychic and necrotic damage. Great. So when I hit, I'll crit. And so you can stack up on that, and you can really tear down, you can build up or tear down the threat levels of different creatures based on that. Like maybe a Rakshasa is way too powerful for your 5th level team, but if you give it a weakness against radiant damage, then if your team picks up radiant damage, or they decide to learn it today because they know they're going to fight Rakshasas, and they've learned that it has that weakness, they can prep themselves to have radiant damage inside of their portfolio for the day, so that when they face off against the BBEG, they can tear it down at a higher rank of CR than they'd normally be able to tackle. That's one of the ideas that's there. And then there's the combat masteries. Combat masteries are kind of like weapon masteries, but you don't have to use a specific weapon. You learn this technique, and while you use a weapon you're proficient with, which includes unarmed strikes if you have it, or like natural weapons if you have them, you can use these combat masteries to push people around, trip them. But these things come with saving throws that they can resist or potentially fail at, as opposed to like the strikes that you can learn. Like Tripping Strike, for instance. It costs you 2 mana to use it, but it automatically trips them. And if you dump more mana into it at higher levels, you can trip things that are bigger. Like, you can eventually trip the Trask if you're willing to dump 6 mana into it. So, like, it has a cost-reward system to be able to do the things that you want to do. I don't know if tripping the Trask is worth 6 dice. It might be if you have the downtrodden reaction that whenever you trip something, you automatically get an opportunity attack against it. So you trip the guy, deal some extra damage, he automatically falls down. You then trigger your downtrodden effect, which gives you a bonus to the attack roll on top of just the opportunity attack itself. So then maybe you want to dump in more mana to double tap the Trask on his way down. So, like, you can build your own action loop sequences to have the kind of action economy and effect on the battlefield to control it as you wish. So all these things, you can pick and choose what you want from the different array of options that are available to have as much tech and complexity and options into your character, or dummy it down and make it super simple that you never have to worry about anything. You just juice yourself up on damage types and feats. So you can make it as complicated or as simple as you want, depending on what kind of a player you are. And then you can use all of that to lean into the type of character that you're portraying. So you can have the mechanics of the game, the Ludo narrative, the mechanics that you build into your character can then complement the style of character that they are. So I've been ranting for a little while. We're going to get started here with the Hunter finally. I always have to rant for like 10 minutes before I actually get started, because I got to get it out of my system because I geek out on it too much. I'm going to set a timer here for the 20-minute mark so I can make sure I don't fall down any rabbit holes too far. Hey, let's catch up. Yes, I think you can. Let's see. I'm also a visually teacher. Oh, neat. The visual tools. That's really awesome. And a visual learner as well. So yeah, all this stuff is. Well, hey Flint, I don't know if you've been around before. So welcome to the team, man. I do artwork in the mornings. I do mechanical development at lunchtimes. I stream 6 days a week, anywhere from like 9 to 12 times a week, depending on what I got going on. So, but all those books, you can check them out for free down below. If you like them, consider making a purchase to help support more shenanigans like this in the future. But just to cap off the geekiness of it, like I was saying, instead of having one choice per level, you get your one for free, and then you can choose, instead of learning spells or powers, you can choose to pick up these additional options. And again, if you go to my Patreon, and clicking back here to my Patreon, you don't have to be a member to access this stuff. But if you just go down here and you click on the playtest, if you just click on this Martial Powers link, It'll be a read-only document for you, but you'll be able to read along the entire book with me as we go. And if I can accomplish, if I can overcome my own excitement and actually finish the Rangers today, all of the classes will be done. Now all we'll have to do is magic item examples, creature kits, magic paradigm explanations, and then tomorrow morning, since I finished my book cover commission, my Saturdays are open now. I think I'm going to start building the DM side of stuff for us to have a playtest, like maybe at the end of January, to start running playtesting for 3rd level. My home table is 20th level right now. So from level 12 to 20, we've been playtesting this in the 3rd and the 4th tier, and they fucking love it. So that's just a few people that are playing Ranger, Rogue, and then our Druid, our Moon Druid. While she's wild shaped into an animal, she can use powers as well. When she turns off the wild shape feature, she can cast spells. And while she's wild shaped, she has no restriction on mana. So, but the way that we're compensating for that is she uses the Warlock, the spell point Warlocks that's in the color mana bundle down below. It's a mana point resource system that we built for the Warlock. And instead of having to worry about her being a full caster with like 80 mana and spending like 1 or 2 mana at a time is going to be ridiculous for her. Instead, we made her a Warlock. So she has the same rate of accumulating mana as every other, like the Ranger has, the Rogue has, our Paladin fighter has. They all use the same mana scaling. So she can effectively get into a wild shape form and start blowing mana on doing powers while she's wild shaped. And then when she switches back to her human form, she can just cast spells like normal. And then she, at 20th level, she has high magic, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th level slots. She just spends her high magic, her arcanum points while she's human shaped. Or if she wants to, not have access to her high magic spells that day, she can spend that mana to use more low level power triggers instead. So Warlocks have a very wide range, and so we had to make powers invocations that you pick up and learn along the way, that you gain. Like 1st rank is at 1st level, 2nd rank invocations you can learn at 5th, 9th, 13th, 17th, just like the Paladin and the Ranger and everyone else does. It puts the Paladin on the same curve, or it puts the Warlock on the same curve as all the half-casters. And then the high magic, the Mystic Arcanum just remains as its own spell thing. And of course you pick up your list of spells, so you have that same flexibility that the Paladin and the Ranger have. And of course for the Artificer, you can spend your infusions to build gear that uses, we call it power gear instead of magic items. It's power gear because you're using martial powers. And you can either create a mana battery that gives you more mana per day, like a mox crystal, or like a mox stone, like an onyx crystal or whatever. You can just build one of those, and then you have it on tap with you. Or you can build an item that requires mana, but the Artificer can only learn spells. He can build items that use power. So if he wants to have like a shield that when you activate the power, it creates a shell that makes you full cover, so you can't target them with attacks while it's active. Like that would be something he'd build into a shield. And when you dump in like 2 points of mana, whatever, it triggers the effect. Now you're in a little dome. And you could hand off that item to somebody else, and they'd be able to use it. So, but you have to have power to use it. So I could hand you that shield, that dome shield. I could hand it to the wizard, and unless the wizard actually has any levels in a class that has access to power, he wouldn't be able to use it. Just like a fighter normally wouldn't be able to use the Staff of the Magi because he doesn't qualify. We're creating a hard line between magic users and power channelers so that you have that separation of magic. You have to specifically build your character to make use of both of them or be a half-casting class. So it's working really well so far. And so I'm looking forward to the 3rd to 7th level playtest earlier. So I think I'm done geeking out now. So our current project right now is I want to finish the list of bonus powers that the Hunter gets, and then we're going to move on to the Monster Slayer. We're going to convert the Monster Slayer. So these are just the powers that we picked up along the way. And you can go down to the list of powers that we have here. You can see like Sus is for a sustain power, REA is for a reaction, STR is for a strike power. So this guy is loaded up with a lot of reactions so far. And now that we've figured out that we can just make all these unchosen options, things that you can buy as additional powers, we're really open now to look at what exists in the kit of 209 powers already that just say hunter one way or another. And we don't have to worry about, is this stepping on the toes of anything else? Because it's all going to curve together to be more manageable or more efficient resources for that hunter to use. I'm actually hoping that somebody picks up a hunter because I want to see how this thing plays. I'm pretty excited about it. So let me make sure I'm caught up on the text. Trask. I don't think the Trask is immune to prone. I just know it's difficult to knock gargantuan creatures prone. Oh, speaking of which, the Spelljammer book that I developed, it deals with massive scales, like 5 foot, 50 foot, 500 foot scale, 1 mile scale, 10 mile scale, 100 million mile scale for different movement. So there's a lot of creatures, like kaiju creatures, that are in the book that I've been painting in the morning that will publish on DMsGuild as well. It deals with like ships and creatures that are up to 500 feet in size. So we have, this is my first look at affecting gargantuan creatures with different like trip, grappling, push effects like that are limited by size. This allows you to scale up larger sizes, right? So like if you have a 15-foot footprint, that means your size huge. And technically gargantuan size caps at 20 feet. But because like in Spelljammer, we have like fighters and mecha that are like 40, 50 feet in size. We need to have larger scale things, and like the hammerhead ship and the squid ship, those are 250 feet in size. So they have like a 250 by 250 foot footprint, which is a 5 by 5 space at the 50-foot scale. We have to have mechanics about upsizing scales. So under normal circumstances, one size larger than you at the 50-foot scale means that you would be able to normally target creatures or ships that are 100 feet in size, which is a lot of them. But then as you continue scaling up to 100, goes to 150, 150 goes to 250, 250 goes to 500, and then it loops. So 500, if you're up to 500 feet, then you'd be able to target something up to 1,000 feet in size. If you're 1,000 feet in size, you can target something that's 1,500 feet in size. If you're 2,500 feet in size, then you can target something that's up to a mile in size. So now we're looking at people lobbing planets and moons at each other. When you scale up to the 10,000 or 100,000 mile scale, you can have planet-sized dragons crushing worlds. If that's the scale of campaign that you want to play, all those mechanics are in the Spelljammer book that I'm currently illustrating Monday through Friday in the morning. And when it's published, it'll be on the DMsGuild down below, and you can look at it. And you look through the free preview, and if you think this stuff is cool, jump on board with me. So I just wanted to point that out because you're asking about tripping the Tarrasque. Depending on the scale that you're working at and the kind of things that you're working with. Like if I had a 200-foot squid ship that had a 100-foot reach to grab you with a tentacle, then that Tarrasque isn't such a big threat anymore. I would pick up and throw that Tarrasque at the enemy. Here, you deal with him. Or I'll take him out into space and throw him into the sun if I have to. But then you have to worry about like celestial dragons that are 500 feet in size themselves, and they'll just eat your ship. So anyway, I'm geeking out. I'm geeking out on a tangential project right now. So sorry. Let's get back on task. We are now working on, we're fleshing out the list of hunter stuff. So as you can see here, there is no requirement that at third level you have first rank powers, 5th level you have second rank powers, etc. We don't have that restriction. What we do want is to look at what is your character capable of doing at this level, and is there a power that we have on our list that complements what your character can now do, regardless of what level it is, knowing you can dump 5 mana into upcasting it if you wanted to. What's some stuff in here that we think is complementary to where your character is currently at? So that's the theme that we're going with, and we start at the highest level and we work our way down to the lowest level, because at the 3rd level, if we have to, we can just give you feats and damage types and some combat masteries, and we don't have to worry about disciplines. But at the higher level, where you spend a lot of mana and you have a shitload of battery, having some high level powers, if they make sense for the theme of your character, is a great opportunity for you just to give them some free powers that they may not otherwise want to pick for themselves, because naturally there's some things that are better than others. It's just not, everything's not perfectly balanced. This is how life works, especially in D&D. So we're going to finally get to your fucking point, Phil. Finally get into the powers. So we're going to start with sustained effects because those have the biggest impact. Again, like Path of Exile. I could lock, and powers only go up to 4th level, or rank. Even though half-casters are capable of 5th level spells, and the Ranger would obviously have some 5th level spells available that you could learn and spend 5 mana on to do so. If we cap powers at 4th rank, it helps tighten the curve so we don't have to buff it out and have so much differentiation in the mechanics or the benefits that you gain. It helps lessen that curve a little bit to simplify it. Kind of like if you decided to have only 10 levels in your game instead of 20, it helps make that growth curve feel a little more organic and more impactful every time you gain a rank of power. By only having 4, it also fits inside of the Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster paradigm, where they get up to 4th level spells at 19th level. If you decided to go with an Arcane Trickster or an Eldritch Knight to gain access to that sweet spell supply, you would then be able to use this power system and substitute out any powers that you could learn along the way. So, let's see. Where are we at? We're going to look at 4th rank powers. We're thinking Hunter, right? Specifically Hunter. I'm hunting stuff. Hunting. Master of Fate. Does that sound like... No, that sounds like one of the psychic classes. So we'll skip that. Indestructible. That sounds like barbarian, tanky, juggernaut type of stuff. Not specifically. Frenzied attacks. That sounds like, Frenzied Berserker or Whirling Dervish type characters. The Hunter, the Hunter isn't specifically, but actually, now that I'm thinking about it, let's look at some of the higher end features that the Hunter gets. Like at 11th level, you get volley and whirlwind attack. So that's letting you hit multiple opponents. Whirlwind attack also lets you hit multiple opponents. It's not insane to think that frenzied attack would be an appropriate thing to give to a high level ranger. You could learn it as soon as 13th level on your own, but I think by 17th level we're going to give it to you for free. So you'll automatically have, you have to spend mana to use it, but the point that we're making is that we're going to gift it to you. Frenzied attacks. Is that what it's called? Sus 4. It's expensive as fuck. Let's, what is it? Frenzied attacks. There you go. Sustained power 4. Here's how it reads. There's 4, then parentheses 3. If you hadn't logicked that out yet, there's 3 powers at 4th level in the sustained effects. So there you go. So frenzied attack. While sustaining this power, you gain 1 additional attack when you take the attack action and gain advantage on all attack rolls. That is like a rogue is going to pick up on that just automatically, right? But it's going to be expensive to use. So it's fun. Keeping in mind, what is it? Swift Quiver. The spell Swift Quiver for the Ranger is a 5th level concentration spell, and all it allows you to do is make an extra attack per round. I think, like you get an extra bonus attack action. That's not a lot for 5 fucking mana. I think time has proven that's not efficient. It's not an efficient use. So this 4th rank. Again, this is something you can lock and still leave 1 channel open for you to do things with your mana with, although in very minute supplies. Or you could leave it unlocked and risk losing those 4 mana on a stray shot that dings you. It's like, fuck, I just lost my concentration. I have to burn 4 more mana to get that back online. You could lock it and really throttle your own mana usage for security. Or you can risk it and have open channels to just be able to blast stuff. So that emphasizes tactics on your team. If your team is just let's bail into stuff and see how it turns out like a baller, then you're probably going to want to lock your mana. If your team is meticulous and strategize, I gotta fix my chair. My team, my 20th level team, knows this crap can kill them. Even at 20th level, they are severely threatened. So they often will study a target, take their time, try to ambush it, minimize their risk, minimize their exposure to damage, and it often they're successful in taking out a target, but a lot of times it goes sideways on them. So if they think they've got a solid lock, if they think they have a solid move on something, they don't have to lock their mana, so they can buff themselves up and then dump shitloads of mana into the effect. But as soon as it turns sideways on them, they can just start locking things down. It's like, oh, this is getting sideways. Let's lock this stuff so we don't lose our mana supply and still be able to tweak out some stuff while we look for a backup strategy. So that's a mentality that you can approach with these things. But yeah, Frenzied Attack, that's a great thing to pick up at 17th level. You'll probably grab it at 13th level, and risk it. 3 mana, Flurry of Attacks. While sustaining this power, you can use a bonus action, including the bonus action used to sustain Flurry of Attacks, to make 2 weapon attacks. So this is basically Swift Quiver for 3 mana, and you can use it with weapons. So useful. I don't know if we want to. Well, it's Flurry of Attacks you pick up at 9th level. We have open spots at 9th level. Fuck it, let's just do it. Flurry of Attacks. Sus 3. Note that your mana cap is 5, so you can't sustain Flurry of Attacks at the same time as Frenzied Attacks, because that's a total mana supply of 7, and you're restricted to 5. But feats that you can learn. Efficient Power. Meta power feats. Efficient Power. Choose a power you've learned of 2nd rank or higher. Reduce the rank and amount of mana to channel the power by 1. This doesn't modify any kicker costs. Like Tripping the Trask is a kicker effect. It'll cost you an extra 4 mana. It's not, kicker effects are not limited by your mana supply. You just have to spend the extra mana to do it. So kicker cost aside. And then obviously if you get rid of the power that is now efficient, you have to get rid of Efficient Power and swap that out too. But if you were to decide to spend either your actual feats or spend 2 powers to learn this feat, you could then go here and you could make Flurry of Attacks efficient to drop it to 2 mana. And you could make Frenzied Attack efficient and drop it to 3 mana. And it would take you thus 5 mana to sustain it. If you locked all of that, you wouldn't have access to any other mana, so you'd be throttling yourself a lot. But you could say lock Frenzied Attack and then leave Flurry of Attacks open. It's only 2 mana at 17th level. That's not expensive. So you could leave Flurry Attack unlocked, lock Frenzied Attack, and still have 2 channels open for you to be able to do mana stuff. But you would effectively then have 3 attacks with your normal action and then 2 attacks with your bonus action for a total of 5. If a fighter were to do this, the fighter would have 4 attacks during your normal action and then 2 attacks during your bonus action. And all of these classes have kicker effects that when you make an attack with a weapon, if you decide to forego any other attacks during your attack action, each sacrificed attack equals a free point of mana that you can spend on a strike power. So you're getting free smite effects by reducing the amount of dice that you have to roll during the session. If I hit on my first attack, I can dump all my remaining attacks during that attack action and get like 2, 3, maybe even 4 points of mana for free that I can then dump into a strike effect. So instead of me rolling 3 or 4 attack rolls, instead I'm just going to throw a fistful of dice that's going to deal damage instead. And we all know adding up damage is a lot more fun than making attack rolls, and adding up damage for 1 attack is faster at the table than calculating 3 or 4 separate attacks with just a static amount of damage. So we're rewarding faster gameplay and player action economy at the table by allowing you to manipulate the resources and action economy of your characters to have less die rolls when you tag to deal better effects. It's effective. It's kind of the same, but the damage, like honestly, if you just roll every time and then random up damage for each attack roll, pound for pound, ultimately rolling each die separately might be more effective if you hit every time. If you miss attacks, then obviously you're just wasting your own resources and your time, because as soon as you hit, you could have just dumped all of your attacks. If you're taking care of like a single target, just dump in. And this really changes the idea about how dangerous big bad evil bosses are supposed to be, right? You want to de-emphasize, like, you shouldn't have to slog with this stupid skeleton tank for 15 rounds. Combat should last 3, 4, maybe 5 rounds. So if your team is dumping in a lot of mana, you can tear down that big bad evil boss more quickly to keep the action more efficient in a faster timeline, which is why you want to add power kits to the creatures so that every round they can be doing something different. That could be punting people away, paralyzing them, banishing them, sinking them halfway into the ground and leaving them there. You can have more cool effects that your creatures are doing every round with the knowledge that that creature is probably going to disappear anywhere from 1 to 5 rounds from now. At best, like 5 rounds. Most of them you can scrap out in 1 or 2 rounds. So you want them to punch your characters heavy and hard and have like 3 or 4 different things that they can do, knowing that you probably won't ever see all of them. So by building out these cool little kits of things that they can do off of this power list, like giving a skeleton flurry of attacks so that it can lumber up to you, hack, and then do like this really quick little flourish double hack, and then the DM cashes those in to deal extra damage. It's like, shit, that skeleton just hit me for 20 points of damage, and I can kill it in 1 hit. That punches hard. So it really changes, like you can see why my 20th level characters would be cautious about just diving headlong into combat, because anything can fuck them up. So they have to be. It's a different style of play that hopefully is going to really scratch an itch. Especially a lot of veteran players have, but other people that are looking for like that path of Pathfinder sort of feeling. Hopefully it helps scratch that itch inside the 5e mechanic system. So we're looking for another 4th rank power. We already have a 4th rank sustained power. That's good. The frenzy attack, I like that. Hunter, 4th rank. Currently the only strike we have is Banishing Strike, which is basically Banishing Smite. It only costs 4 mana to use it though. And then we drop down into 3rd rank strikes. Paralyzing Strike is basically like I hit you, now you're held, like hold person or like hold monster. It's effectively the same thing. You deal damage and then they get hit with a hold person, but you're automatically guaranteed to paralyze them the first round. But they get to free themselves from it at the end of at the end of each round. At the end of each turn, a creature has a chance to make a saving throw to get out of it. So you automatically apply the effect, but then it's their turn immediately, and then at the end of their turn, they can get rid of it. So the success, you have guaranteed successes right off the cuff. So you know you're going to do damage, and you know you're going to kick off the effect. But from then on, there's no guarantee, because there's no way to sustain it. There's no way to lock it on permanently. It's just whenever the creature gets out of it, they're out of it, which eats up legendary resistance effects. And players all have the ability, if you find that you are being hit by these things and it sucks, you have reactions that you can then, or exploits, that you can modify your saving throw die roll. So it's like, I just got hit by a paralyzing strike off of a beholder, and now I'm fucking paralyzed. I want to get out of this. I can use as an exploit, not a reaction, because I'm paralyzed. I can't take reactions right now. But as an exploit, I can then up the amount I can use. I can roll extra dice to make sure I can get out of that paralysis. It might cost me 3 or 4 mana, but if I spend it all, I'm pretty much going to ramp up my saving throw to the point I can get out. So you're exchanging, you're getting hit by effects that are guaranteed to fuck you, and then you're being offered the opportunity to spend mana to get out of it. So conditions equal resource drains in this system. So if you're concerned about, characters, they have so much resources available, there's so much stuff that they can do, the mana battery basically becomes an alternate hit point pool that you use to get out of conditions that will cause you more damage, if that makes sense to you. So that's why we get paid the big bucks. We build these things, and then we find ways to explain them, and we put it all in the text as an explanation. We put cool pictures next to them. So that's what we're in the process of doing. Like, I have to think about these things while we're building this stuff out, and in my own home table, I get to throw in these different kits of abilities and see how it impacts the characters and see how they respond to those things being done. So fun stuff. Let's see. So we're looking at 4th rank, and Banishing Strike doesn't feel very Hunter at all. Horizon Walker, yes, but not Hunter. Delusional Strike, Paralyzing Strike, nah. Tripping Strike, Restraining Strike, Provoking Strike, Poisoning Strike, Life-Stealing Strike, Intimidating Strike, Blinding Strike. Poisoning Strike might be Hunter flavored. again, you guys have access to this stuff here on my Patreon. If you click through this playtest content and early looks here on my Patreon, you don't have to be a member of my Patreon to scroll down to the playtest content for martial powers. If you click on this, it'll open up this exact document that we're looking at right now. You'll have read-only access. So if you guys if like anything catches your eye as interesting, like if you want to find out about provoking strike, because it's basically a crowd, it's like a provoke mechanic, like from WoW. Like you might want to spend a moment looking at that. So while I'm flipping through things, you can jump into my Patreon here and open up the document yourself and be welcome to look through here at any of the powers that we have, or any of the class features that we have for all the different classes from level 1 to 20, or build your own character and start fucking around with it yourself. Or get on board and jump on my Patreon and let me know that you're interested in playtesting with me. We'll be starting at 3rd level, going through 7th level. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see. Poisoning Strike might be good. This one's fun. It deals acid or poison damage. It adds additional damage for every point of damage that you deal, and the creature becomes poisoned. And again, they can end the poison condition at the end of each of their turn, but their saving throw is going to be a disadvantage. So I think poison makes disadvantage on saving throws. So nasty. Let's see. Maybe not. I will. What is that? 2nd rank? Poison ? We'll put that in as a maybe. There might be other things in here that are cooler. Thundering Strike pushes people. Sweeping Strike hits creatures that are adjacent to your target. Shocking Strike takes away opportunity attacks. Radiant Strike is just radiant or force damage at 1st level if you want it. Psionic Strike, 1st level, you get psychic or force damage. Necrotic, 1st level, you get force or necrotic damage, your choice. Grappling Strike is for melee weapons only. When you hit with a weapon, you automatically begin grappling them with it. If you want to hear my thoughts about grappling with melee weapons and my experience in learning Japanese medieval combat, my Eberron stream from last night, episode 172, I think. It was the one that was most recent. If this is the future, I'll have a hard time locking that down. But I spent maybe like 20 minutes talking about how swords, spears, staffs, and different types of weapons are used to grapple opponents, and how fun it is to integrate in D&D the weapon damage that you're dealing to the attack, to the grappling that you're performing. So that's just an aside, but that's the kind of stuff that I talk about when I'm painting. But yeah, so Goading Strike, not appropriate for a hunter at all, though. Freezing Strike slows you down. Goading Strike provokes is basically it's compelled duel. Flaming Strike catches things on fire. Distracting stuff causes disadvantage. Disarming Strike flips something out of somebody's hand. Caustic Strike is a acid or poison effect, but doesn't deal the poison condition. The poison condition comes on at 2 mana. Honestly, none of those strikes just scream hunter at me at all. So it's pretty good that we're almost done. All we oh my god, is this? Yeah, all we need is another 17th level power and a 9th level power, and we're done, and we'll move on to the Monster Slayer. So let's go back up here. These are the reactions that are in now. And so let's see. Rite of Revival as a reaction when you drop to 0 hit points, but you don't die outright. You remain conscious and roll a number of power dice equal to the mana burn, and the mana burn is going to be 4 unless you make it efficient for less. Gaining that many hit points instead of dying. So if you drop to 0 hit points, instead of worrying about the up and down, the whack-a-mole style of gameplay that everyone thinks is stupid, why not just not worry about whack-a-mole, and why not, instead of spending 3 mana to cast Revivification and waste your cleric's time, why not just use a reaction, burn 4 mana, and just give yourself a pocket of hit points and not die? Did I knock you down? Yes, I did. Did I eat up your action economy? I took your reaction. Did I take your mana from you? More than Revivify would have. So it's actually a pretty good way to go. I recommend you explore it. It's a better narrative than Whack-A-Mole. Like, are you okay spending 4 mana to stay on your feet? Or do you want to fall down, have someone walk over, cast heal on you, you get back up again? It's just a matter of action economy and expended resources and how do they complement the narrative of your game. So I actually have thoughts about characters dying in combat, but not having to stop fighting. Like, they will die at the end of this battle, so they get to continue to engage, but they act as though they're poisoned, so everything's at disadvantage because they're a dead man walking, but they're still helping the team. That's an idea that I've been playing with recently, so more to come about that idea. So, but we're looking at reactions. So Rider Revival, that doesn't really say Hunter. Hexproof makes you immune to magic. That doesn't. Defensive Barrier creates that shell I was talking about with the shield. Anchor prevents things from teleporting or moving. Luck, redirecting attacks. These only cost 2 mana here. Moving target might actually not be a bad one for a hunter. So moving target, as a reaction to when a creature you can see moves into or within the reach of your melee weapon, you can make an opportunity attack, even if the target is using the disengage action or the movement is forced. Rolling 1 power die per mana, adding the highest result to your attack roll. So if you're 13th level, here, if we haven't looked at the actual table today. So it's half casting progression. You start accumulating mana and powers at first level, including spells, as per the... I'm really happy how much the Unearthed Arcana playtesting that Wizards of the Coast is putting out is complementing this power system that I've been streaming for the past year. I'm not saying they watch my channel. I'm just saying that if you've watched my channel, all the really cool stuff that they're offering, I introduced at least a month earlier. And as a result of the playtesting content that they're starting to put out as of UA8, if they decide to execute all these plans, the power system works better than it does in 5th edition 2014. So I'm actually incredibly excited about where 2024 is going, simply because I want martial powers to be as fucking cool as possible. And 2024 D&D is going to make it more cool. So really looking forward to that. So at first level, your power die is a D6. It's like a superiority die as well. It's like an inspiration die because it modifies attack rolls, it modifies damage rolls, and it modifies ability checks and saving throws. So it's just a universal die. And at no point is this die better than the Bard or the Battle Master as written, or I don't know what else gets a die like that. But those are your main sort of, like, I'm not trying to compete with, I'm just trying to complement the flavor of what those different classes do. But if you want to be really good at inspiring and helping people with a D12, you're going to want to go Bard, because this is self-help only and it caps at a D10. See how that works? And the way that exploits work is that the number of mana that you spend is the number of dice that you roll. But adding them all up as though it was damage, like damage, it's great. Throw on as much damage as you want. It's a smite spell. You know how that works. One point of mana equals add 1 die roll. At 17th level, 5 mana, you're going to throw 5d10 dice of damage. And you earned it because you just spent freaking 5 mana. So you deserve to deal that much damage. You're fighting things with 400, 500 hit points. So you should. But at lower levels, it's a D8 and it's a D6. So at first level, you're throttled all the way down to only 1 mana, giving you an extra D6. But as you gain levels, like at 9th level, you can spend 3 mana to roll 3 D8. But getting a plus 24 to your intelligence check or whatever, that completely blows the bounded accuracy curve out of the water. So instead what we do is you roll all the dice and you take the best result. And then the other dice are burned. So at some point around 2 or 3 mana is about as likely, statistically, you're going to get something above average. It's really just the amount of mana that you spend as a player is a fear reaction. I have to fucking get this. I am willing to spend 5 mana to make it happen. That's a key to the DM, that they really want to hit this thing, or they're really afraid they're going to die. And you can throttle back the threats that you're dealing with on your team by how much mana they're willing to spend to take a target out. Because they're going to tell you, hey, I want to dump a lot of mana into this. Or if they're talking as a team about what their plans are, it's like, yeah, we need to take this thing out. So let's just dump high mana into it. And once that's shredded, we can just start doing some crowd control stuff to take out the rest of the waves. That's telling you that A, they're threatened by this thing. B, make sure that you're pacing the encounter so that they're having a good tug of war with you about, like, I describe it as a dog. If you're going to, a dog isn't trying to take the chew toy away from you. It doesn't want it. It wants to earn it. It wants to fight you and argue with you and have fun tearing this chew toy up while he's trying to wrestle it from his grip. And after a while, he has some really good tugs with it, and you can tell he's getting bored. So you have some good tug, and then you just let him have it. So if you want to generally pace the amount of damage that a creature can take to be around that point of boredom in the wrestling contest, right? If they're having a lot of fun with it, they're going to be really aggressive, they're going to want to chew on stuff. They're not going to want that to last longer. They're going to have more swing. They're going to want to do more damage. They're going to want to be more scared about losing their own life. They want it to be more on the edge. So you adjust the amount of damage that's being dealt and taken by pushing them to the edge of what they can tolerate, not by extending the length of the combat. Tight, quick, damaging combat that makes them think, God, if that lasted 5 rounds, we'd probably be dead. I'm glad we shredded that shit in 3 rounds. It's giving them a self-reward feedback loop for spending more mana to take out threats. So as a DM, you can just weave in more threats along the way so you can get closer to that elusive 8 rounds per combat day that is supposedly is what all the resource mechanics inside of 5e are based around. 2 short rests, 1 long rest. Between long rests, there's 8 encounters that can potentially threaten your character. So you want to, if you want to play the game as written and have that many short rests built into your game, you need to have threats coming at them at that tempo. So you can get closer to that by having more explosive combat that lasts shorter durations. So a combat can effectively become a trap. If a trap only lasts 1 round and it does 40 points of damage to your barbarian and he's at half health now, that sucks. If you run across a creature, 2 or 3 creatures that your team can clean up in 1, maybe 2 rounds of combat, and they end up dealing 70 points of damage across your team. So now the rogue is at a third, the barbarian is down to half again, and your fighter's at a quarter. Those 2 rounds of combat were terrifying. What's next? So by making it explosive and short, you can punch your team hard and fast. So they're like, we survived that. Quick, let's dump on healing out of combat. Because when next combat comes, if we can shred through our enemy fast enough, we'll survive long enough to have the resources or the short rest to give us back our resources or to be able to heal. You see how that works? That's how 5e is designed to be played, but there's no real rules about it. So it has to be explosive and deadly. Like, push them. Like, the damage that things should do to your team is going to be like half the damage that the weakest character on your team can take. It's like if your rogue has 60 hit points, the maximum amount of damage that you should expect a creature to be able to hit for is going to be around 30. So if you want to take crits into account, cap it at 20. So when they crit, they can hit up to 20, up to 40. But on average, they're going to be dealing 10. If your rogue has 60 hit points, 6 hits kills him. If there's 3 opponents in the combat and they all target the rogue is going to be at half or dead in that round. So you can pace the number of opponents that you have and the damage that they can deal off of how many people, how many teammates are in the team, and what's the weakest hit point total. So that way you're always pacing against. If you catch somebody out of position, they've got 1, maybe 2 round. They have like a round to reposition themselves. And if they have 1 or 2 opponents on them, that could become deadly for them. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's a resource. Well, I hate this fucking heart, man. It's a resource war. Exactly. Yes, that's it. The reason you want the wrestling that I talk about with the dog, the tugging on the chew toy. Every time the dog goes and jerks his head, that's your team spending anywhere from 2 to 7 mana that round to tear at something, right? So in the higher level you get, the more that growl is there, that's the more mana that your team is throwing at a threat each encounter with their action economy. So you can build around that, and you can have a lot of variety. If there are things only going to last like up to 4 rounds and that's it, then you can have a lot of very different combat signature for each creature, because they have basically 4 things to do to terrify or excite your team, and then they're gone. So you can do things like, I'm going to paralyze you, and now you're out of action, and now maybe the combat lasts 3 rounds instead of 2, or you spend mana to hype your saving throw so that you can break that effect and get back to work. Because you're gonna trigger that saving throw at the end of your round. So there you go. It's gonna affect you for one round. That sucks. I don't want that to happen again. It's the end of my round. I now get to throw a saving throw. I'm going to dump 3d8 on top of it to try to get like a +7 on my die roll to try to get out of that out of that effect. So, for instance, let's see. Where are we at? It's 2 o'clock. I've been at this for an hour. We're doing great. I technically have the rest of the day off, so I can fuck around with you guys for as long as I want. I have like 4 hours. So if I get done early, I'm going to break stream, go have a coffee break, and then I'll come back and I'll do some painting. But I'm fully prepared to be here for another 2 or 3 hours. So we'll see how this thing pans out. Yeah, I think moving target is a great decision. And it's a high enough level that at 9th level, it feels earned, right? Come back. Damn it. There. Oh no, it's only 2 mana. Reaction 2. And do you remember? An efficient power is a feat that you can learn, or that you can swap a power for. So if I wanted to make moving target 1 mana, I would then learn it as an efficient power, costing me 2 slots instead of just 1 to learn. And now I can use moving target. So if my friend is using Thundering Strike and he punts an enemy through my area of effect, or my attack radius, I can spend a point of mana and ding him on the way by. So my team is spending mana to use Thundering Strike to punt him into my area of effect so that I can hit him again on the way by. And that's already a reaction. But if you had somebody next to you that has, like, say, Downtrodden, if I hit you with a Tripping Strike, I then make you skate across the ground while you're being pushed by your enemy's Thundering Strike. And since you fell prone, face skidding across the ground, my friend can hit you with a hammer on the head with a downtrodden effect. So my barbarian punts him, my rogue sticks him with a knife on the way by, and then the fighter stabs him maybe twice because he's got flurry of attacks going. He tap, stabs him twice, and by the time this guy ends skidding, he's taken 80 points of damage. But it costs you like 4 or 5 mana to do it. So that's super fun. You can build chains, like you can position your team on the board and set up chains of damage in that way. It's super fucking cool. It's incredibly complicated and like really deep into the mechanical weeds. But if your team loves that crap, you can do it. It's there for you. Or you can just learn a bunch of feats and like slashing damage and like, you know, savage attacker or whatever. Do that instead. It just depends on how much you want to geek out at it at the table. And the DM can do the same thing too against you guys. So don't be a dick about it because you can really ruin somebody's day. Let's see. So yeah, moving target. Now all we need is 17th level power, huh? Okay. Let's see what's out there. Let's get out of the reactions. Let's get into maneuvers. Incapacitator. While grappling, it's a grappling thing, that's not going to work. But just so you know, you can deal 1 power die of weapon damage per mana burned. And it's going to be 4 mana that you're burning, could be 5. To the grappled creature and force it to make a Constitution saving throw. If the save fails, the creature becomes unconscious. Until the creature takes more damage, succeeds a Constitution saving throw at the end of its turns, or the grapple ends. There you go. Sleep, buddy. Sleep. Hey, more text. Nope. It's just... Oh, it's that stupid heart again. I hate that thing. I don't know how to get rid of it. Wave of Terror, no. Flicker Pounce is a teleportation effect. It's super cool, but you curse a creature you can see to deal half damage with attacks until the target succeeds a strength saving throw at the end of its turn. That's a great 9th level power. Lift, Shunt, Regeneration. Ooh, maybe Pack Tactics. When you channel this, and this is a 2nd rank power, so it costs 2 mana. As a reaction, you become, when you channel this maneuver to target a creature you can see, Other creatures gain advantage to hit that target until the beginning of your next turn. Hold on. Thank you. You and other creatures gain advantage to hit that target until the beginning of your next turn. So, maneuvers can be channeled, instead of cast, can be channeled as either an action or a bonus action. Your choice, depending on what your action loop is and what your options are. You can use the same power twice in the same turn if you want. So I could pack its turns. There may be a circumstance, if I'm playing a support character, that I want to tap Curse of Enfeeblement on the twin bosses that are attacking us, like the twin giants that are attacking us. They're two separate creatures. They're going to fuck us up. Okay, great. Well, I'm packing Curse of Enfeeblement, so I'm going to knock those guys down to half, and I'm going to start triggering effects that causes them to have disadvantage on their saving throws. I'm going to burn my resources to reduce the threat to my hit point pool and to shred that enemy more quickly. So again, it's how quickly can we destroy something and how much mana are we willing to throw at it, and that is an indication to the DM about what kind of how aggressive the team is willing to get when they're threatened or when they're feeling confident. So you can build that, you can build the narrative of the game around the way that your team plays. But that's some really advanced DM shit to be able to analyze a play style of a team on the fly and to be able to adjust how much punch you have organically and spontaneously. Like that's like high level improv shit. But if you're committed to the craft and you're excited about it, you pick it up more quickly. So it's something that you can put on your radar as something that you may not have even known was a skill that you could develop as a DM at all. Being able to improvise weapon damage, threats, durations, and collateral effects of combat are all spontaneous things that can be adjusted on the fly by pulling different levers of duration versus damage. So there you go. Let's see. Curse of Enfeeblement, lifts, shunt. Oh, by the way, just as an aside, people talk about how shitty it is to be paralyzed or whatever it is, like stunned or something, so you don't get to participate in battle that round. If you're having 4 or 5 battles a day that are lasting 2 or 3 rounds apiece, and everybody is getting hit by effects that occasionally take, like, we can expect, like, every other round to have at least one person just not doing good right now. That makes you change the type of tactics that you use. That if I'm the heel this round, if I'm bitched this round, if I have a couple powers that let me do things like pack tactics or enfeeble targets, I might not be able to hit worth a shit. But I can tag you with an effect that even though my action economy is garbage right now, or I'm worthless in an attack, I can be enhancing and buffing the rest of my team to make a much more significant difference in the battle. So I'm still effectively throwing down with my team. You can just expect on a team of 4 to have the firepower of like maybe 3.5 instead of 4. If the DM is in a habit of continuously dinging the team with condition effects that go on and then drop off. So, food for thought. Now, that's actually really useful in Pathfinder mentality as well. Let's see. Shunt, lift, no. Phase, distract, curse brand. I just need a capstone power. Something that just makes a lot of sense. Rally, healing, radiance, vanish. I think they're gonna auto install vanish onto the ranger anyway. It's a decent power to consider having at first level. Honestly, it's a decent power worth having on first level. Let's look at. Okay, let's shuffle some stuff around. We're going to push. Very yes. Let's push Flurry of Attacks back to 17th level. Let's just make you a whirling dervish at this level. There you go. That's awesome. There. Who's not going to love that? Let's see. Moving target. And then we have Vanish. So we can drop Vanish down to... Yeah, let's put Vanish here. What was that? First rank. There you go. Rogue stance sounds exactly like it is. It gives you cunning. It gives you cunning action. It costs 1 mana. It's a sustained effect. Rogue gets it for free. It doesn't cost any concentration or mana effects to have it, but other people can get it too. It's super useful to have. Sure, it totally eats the lunch of the rogue's identity, but rogues are doing strikes too. It's not so much about the class. When you're using the system, it's not so much your class as your identity. It's the action loops and the utility that you're bringing to your team through the powers that you learn, supplemented by the subclass that you choose to further lean into that play style that the kit is helping you build. The class features and the bonus powers that you gain, if we're doing this well, is creating a shell of options that surround the class that has it. So it's not about your paladin or your barbarian or your rogue specifically, not about their identity. It's what role are you playing in the group, because there's so many different things that you can do as any of these characters. The class that you choose is building core features that you hang all of this action economy and combat options around. And there's out of combat stuff, like there's a lot of utility stuff for different skill checks and being able to engage in people with like social options, movement options. So there's different exploration things that you can do outside of combat. It's D&D. Combat's the most robust pillar of play, but we have paid attention to both the social and the exploration pillars in here as well. So your character expands out of just having a lot of toys to have in combat. You do, but tomorrow you could swap your entire kit out and drop in exploration and social abilities, so that while you're doing downtime in the city, you can be blowing your mana pool to get advantages on bartering checks, on finding that guy you're looking for, on casing this joint that you're looking at doing as a heist mission later on, getting resources to do that heist mission. You can use your mana pool to hype your ability checks and things that you get involved into as those different pillars of play. So if you want to be out of combat, like a rogue character with his mana pool, really just leaning into roguish social exploration things, like alongside the Ranger, for instance, that would be a badass city kit to play. So you can lose the identity, like your class identity becomes less. It's just the frame that you hang the action economy that you choose to express your character through. How do I use my mana? What do I use it for to help my team? That's my identity, and that can evolve daily as you move through. You can have different modes of play depending on what type of challenges you're expecting to take, because you can swap out your kits as easily as a priest can pray for new options. It's just, this is things that you can do. This is how you enhance yourself with your magic. So it can adapt very easily over time. So we were looking at, so Vanish. That feels good for 5th level. I'm really happy with that. I think we're going to see the Rogue having that for free automatically as a thing they can do per day, I believe. But if that is true, having a resource that you can do it more often is fantastic. Blow an extra point of mana. You can use Vanish more often than once per short rest if you want. And then it can become your action loop that you're just constantly becoming invisible to get into position to stab at somebody. So, fun stuff. So, that finishes the Hunter. Let's get into the Monster Slayer. Hair. So now we're going to do the Monster Slayer. Having said all that, I've picked at this thing before. This is my second pass on all these classes. 4 months ago, I built this out, but then we introduced and simplified a lot of tech inside of the game overall to make it more streamlined. And so that means I have to go back through and look at all the subclasses and adjust them accordingly. And boy, it's for the Ranger, it's been absolute gold. I would absolutely play a Ranger at freaking any time. Like the books I build, I'm a forever DM. I play like once for like 3 hours every other week. That's all I get. But as a DM, I play weekly. And when I'm playtesting, 2 or 3 times a week. And the tools that I build are things that I want to DM. I want players to use these things. So all the stuff that I build is player and DM facing for like the narrative and the tools that are there, because I want players to be able to do this stuff inside of my games, because this is the type of stuff that excites me to challenge teams with. Like, I want to be able to punch you with these sort of things. I want you to be able to punch back at me with that kind of strength. It's not, it's just like, it's almost like just, like I played shitloads of Gestalt when you played like 2 classes at the same time inside the same character, and then you fuse them together to create more action economy. That was a really big sub game in 3rd edition. Gestalt campaigns in 3E were fun as hell. I've done a couple different Gestalt games in 5E, and they are also incredibly fun. But I'm always thinking about that action economy, and like the more options you have, the more competent or powerful your character gets. Not because you're dealing more damage than another class would. It's just that, like, in this system, you have a bunch of paladins that are also doing bard stuff, that could also do barbarian stuff, that could also do kind of like off-tank cleric stuff. Like, you have a lot of options that you can build your team around to have different, like, you can have less people doing more. It's that Gestalt effect by being able to pick and choose things that seem like other class features or feel like spells that exist out there, but I'm able to optimize how I package them together into my character. And then you have, and then you have to spend resources to make use of it. So it's not completely out of control. But it's fun. It's a different style of play. So it might be what a bunch of people are looking for. And if it is, then awesome. This is going to turn out really well. But it's designed to complement the color mana spell points, so that you can like run Strixhaven, Ravnica, Theros, or any other D&D or color magic campaign that you want, like MTG stuff, so that all 13 character classes are using the same color mana system that Magic the Gathering is so iconically famous for. And then you can use the colors of Magic that you add to your character to be narrative elements of their personality. Like if you're a Dice Try fan, Dice Try videos on YouTube, he just dives into philosophy, color philosophy, character expression, mentality, attitudes, character traits, like different type, like what identity are these different characters in fiction, and why. He does super deep dives into characters and societies using magic as the frame of philosophy about behaviors that you have. So if you decide to play a Rakdos character that's all vengeance, getting back at others, and acting before they think, black-red mana combination is super complementary, because when they get mad, they have these like black flames that flare up off of them, and like you can have that kind of a character acknowledgement, like I'm going to activate haste, I'm going to activate celerity and frenzy for my sustained powers, and now your character is wreathed in these little flames of black and red magic. So you can because there's always a color, there's always a visual signature when you activate, because you don't have components, you don't have to worry about semantics. You don't have to worry about materials. It's like key, like with monks, you can just do it. But the drawback is there's always a color, there's always some sort of visual signature that shows that you are using power. And so when something's happening to you, and you look around, it's like, that guy's just leaking green energy, no wonder I feel better. It's like, that has that, so there's that tell that makes it very upfront and aggressive. You can spend extra mana to conceal and hide that magical effect, but again, it's making you eat resources to not be given away, which rogues would buy into, or bards maybe, or any kind of stealth character that doesn't want to give away what they're doing. So, but again, it's just leaning into the narrative flavor that it's designed for, which is magic. So let's look at the features that are in the class. We're going to go over here. We have a blank notepad. And we're going to go down here into Hunter, Monster Slayer. Let's just pick up all this stuff. And we'll see if what I did before is still relevant, or if we can improve on it. So, let's get started. Monster Slayer, you have dedicated yourself to hunting down creatures of the night and wielders of grim magic. A Monster Slayer seeks out vampires, dragons, evil fae, fiends, and other magical threats. Trained in supernatural techniques to overcome such monsters, Slayers are experts at unearthing and defeating mighty mystical foes. There's a slew of features that you have. Monster Slayer magic. Starting at 3rd level, you learned an additional spell. When you reach certain levels, the spell count as a ranger spell for you, but it doesn't count against the number of ranger spells you know. So you get 5 for free, and so we'll build a kit of 5 bonus powers that you'll get once we go through churning through the features. So there's that. Hunter Sense. I renamed it the Slayer Sense because there's a Hunter subclass that this is not a Hunter. It should be called Slayer Senses, in my opinion. But that's just an editor thing. Hunter Sense. At 3rd level, you gain the ability to peer at a creature and magically discern how best to hurt it. As an action, choose one creature you can see within 60 feet of you. You immediately learn whether the creature has any damage immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities, and what they are. If the creature is hidden from divination magic, you sense that it has no damage immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum of once. You regain all expended uses of it when you finish a long rest. There you go. So we'll modify that. Let's see what we did before and see if I still agree with it now. At 3rd level, you gain the ability to peer at a creature and magically discern how best to hurt it. When you mark a target as your prey... Oh, that's right. We're going to use marks. We're using marks. So when you mark a target as your prey, you immediately learn whether the target... Normally at low levels, at 3rd level, if you want to like Hunter's Mark or like favored foe or favored enemy, I blended all the... I should probably look at that with you guys real quick so we know what we're talking about. I blended all those abilities into Mark of Prey. So Mark of Prey, it's a sustained effect that you can lock or maintain concentration on. You get a free point of mana. You can basically use it once for free every time you take a short rest. And it's a concentration effect that can be locked. So at low levels, you're probably going to want to maintain concentration on it, and you will occasionally lose it. You're not very efficient. But at 5th level, when you have 2nd rank powers, you can afford to lock Hunter's Mark or Mark of Prey on. You can lock it on and still have a rank of mana open for you to be able to channel effects through. And then it stays on permanently. And once it's on, you can use you use a bonus action to switch targets until you get to, I think it's 11th level. It upgrades so that anytime you hit something, you can just choose to make them your Mark of Prey. There you go. So, meow, 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 meow. Just to look at this real quick. Mark of Prey. It replaces Hunter's Mark, favorite enemy feature, favorite foe, optional class feature. Starting at 1st level, you gain a point of temporary mana that can be used specifically as a bonus action to mark a creature that you can see as your prey. You can tap or lock that mana to sustain Mark of Prey as a 1st rank power, and while sustained, you can use a bonus action to mark a different creature as your prey. You can use your bonus action this way immediately when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, applying any additional effects gained by Mark of Prey to the creature you hit. So it triggers immediately when you use your bonus action, kind of like how UA 6 treated Paladin Smites. So effects. When sustaining Mark of Prey, you gain advantage on attacks, as well as intelligence investigation, wisdom insight, perception, and survival checks. When you hit your prey with a weapon attack, you can reduce the cost of channeling a strike power by 1 mana to a minimum of 0. So basically, you get to deal a 1st rank smite spell for free against anything that's been marked as your Mark of Prey. It costs a bonus action for you to mark it until you get to 11th level. Then you can just use it as part of your attack sequence. Mark, 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 mark. And you'll always be doing an extra D8 of damage against those targets as long as you're marking them. Unless you're keeping an eye on another target on your GPS here and just tag. You're tagging targets, but you're keeping this target over here as your prey because maybe they're invisible and you need to be able to track them. So you have Mark of Prey on them, bam, they just turn invisible. Fuck. Well, at least now I have advantage to track them down while they're invisible to negate the disadvantage on my attack roll, so I can just attack them like normal. Like stuff